Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Masks Off. I'm so excited to be here. We have another guest speaker today, and this is our second one. So I'm super excited. We have Diana Lockett with us. I am Kim.
And I'm Tia.
And as always, we always start our episodes with a quote. So I will read the quote and then we'll share with you what we're going to talk about today. So the quote is, "We liberate children not by making them work for our love, but by letting them rest in it." And that's by Gordon Neufield. So Diana, you are a visionary heart leader. Can you share more with us and the listeners what that means and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Kim and Tia. It's so amazing to be here. I love the vision and the name of your podcast. And I have to say, I love that quote. So I was going to write it down, but I'll do it after. I love that quote that you just read, Kim.
Thank you.
I am a realignment coach. I mean, I wear lots of different hats. Let's start at the beginning. I am a goddess. I am a mother. I am a yoga teacher trainer. I have been a speech and language pathologist for 32 years in the area, and my expertise is communication disorders for nonverbal children. And through that, I have realized that I have been helping others to access and find their voice for my entire adult life. Whether it's been through the professional hat that I wear as a speech pathologist, whether it's been through my yoga teacher training, or whether it's been through my coaching, it's been about helping others, primarily women, to find their authentic message. And for some people, for some children, it's going to be as simple as, how do I say help when I need help by pushing a button? And for some women that I coach, it's, how do I ask for help in my life? And so as I follow the breadcrumbs of my adult life, I realized that everything has been in service for me, because as a child, my voice was diminished. And I had so much to say, and I had such a longing to say it. And so I realized that I've spent my career helping people to access their voice, and in that journey have found my own voice and unapologetically now share my message and my voice, and have learned how to touch my pain and to allow my pain to deliver it to its purpose. I am an international best-selling author. So I have written in a compilation book. I have one that came out last spring, another one coming out this spring called the Ignite series. And so my first book was called Ignite Female Changemakers. And it is an international compilation of 50 women who have been changemakers in the world. And I was so incredibly proud to be included in that. I have one coming out that's called Ignite for Inspiration, I believe is the title, and it's coming out in the spring. And then I'm working on my solo book that I am committed to having finished by the end of April. The title yet to be determined. I will let you know when I'm finished the book. And I also do a lot of international speaking. I love going on stages, summits, podcasts, and really sharing my message to help people to wake up to their authentic truth in their life. And it's never too, it's never too late to do that. We all have authenticity within us, and we have learned very early on how to deny that. And my purpose is to help people return to that state. And then for many people, it's how do we bring it then into service in a business form, as a spiritual business, whatever that happens to be, in a spiritual business purpose for your life.
That is
so much.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so inspired by you already. I mean, I hear myself in that, in the sense that when I was young and growing up, wanted to use my voice so much and just didn't feel that I could. I do remember at one point when I was really young, school age, and I would love to either pretend that I was singing on stage and that I was a performer, or that I was going to be a gymnast and I was going to be a professional figure skater. Can I say none of those happened? I have not professionally sang, danced, what did I say? Ice skate or gymnastics. I haven't done any of those, but just the fact that I was so comfortable in my authentic self to be able to be out there and be big and shine bright. And then how over time that light just got dimmer, dimmer, and dimmer, and dimmer, to becoming, that's why I became the people pleaser and, just hiding behind all those masks and just kept quiet and didn't assert what I needed, what I wanted, because it was more important to take care of the other and not focus and shine the light on me. And now, like, coming full circle, here we are, masks off,
Right.
T and I doing this podcast. It's so apropos to be doing this podcast with that title and just being able to peel it back. And I love what you said. I love your message. I love what you're doing. And yes, it's amazing that you've been a speech pathologist and how you're just helping people to speak. Love that.
Mhm.
All the
thank you.
layers, all the layers of finding your voice, shining your light, and peeling back those masks that we wear. And so I love this conversation because as children, we were us.
Yeah.
We knew who we were. We weren't afraid to shine. We used our voice. Not all, obviously there's conditions that came in earlier for some children. And so what's your thought? What is your experience in how childhood we have that choice to continue to shine or conform? And so what are your thoughts with that?
So let me give you the scientific evidence and then I'll tell you my story. So what we know is that there are two primary needs as children that are essential for wholehearted, healthy living. And that is the need to be loved and the need to be fully expressed, which is what we call authenticity. And that means being able to share our true feelings, our longings, our needs, our desires. But when we have an environment where the adults are not able to meet our open heart because their hearts are closed, because they haven't been able to express themselves, because they have their own conditions that they're running, there's no blame here. This is just unfortunately the way it is. And as adults, we have a choice what we want to do with this, knowing this. When we are met with a closed heart, when we are met with being disciplined or told that our voice is not welcomed, which means our emotional expressions are not welcomed, then we have a choice to make. Do I choose to be loved or do I choose to be who I am? And as a 2-year-old, imagine a 2-year-old reaches for a cookie. Mom says no. 2-year-old has a meltdown, temper tantrum. Now, as a communication expert for 32 years, that is a total normal response. That is the child communicating in the way that they only know how to.
Exactly.
But they're made wrong in that communication. They're either given a timeout, go sit on the stairs, go to your room, stop doing that, this is not okay. And so the child very early learns to stop listening and expressing who they are. They lock it in.
Right.
They lock it in and they push it down. And they have to do that because all of a sudden, mommy's not happy. Does mommy love me? Oh my gosh, I need to be something different for mommy to love me. Look how unhappy she is. This is how early it starts. And it starts even earlier, right? It starts really, really early. And there's research that has shown us that starts like in early infancy. But this is a common example. When my kids were little, I didn't time out. I timed in. I had that intuitive wisdom. Before I became a spiritual coach. I had this intuitive wisdom that what they need is they need me to hold them in when they're upset, not push them away. And I don't want anyone to listen to this and think, oh, shoot, I did it so backwards.
I'm feeling that way.
Yeah, it's not about laying guilt. It's about how do we now repair? And no matter how old your kids are, my kids are 23 and 14. You can still repair. You can still show up in a way that lets them be fully expressed as they are today and give them permission. I'll give you guys a little story in a moment that just came to me this week. Let me finish this piece though. So very early on, we learn that who we are is not always welcomed in the world. And so we start to close our hearts. As we close our communication, we close our hearts, we close our authenticity, and we become who we are needing to be received in the world.
Definitely.
So for me, I was a very chatty girl. Kim, I lived your story. I had these, I remember putting on like this rock star. I grew up in Montreal, Quebec. I put on this rock star look, and I don't know, we had company, and I literally like slid, like think of like, slid into the living room, playing my air guitar, blasting the music and singing, and not really being received.
Mm.
And then I remember at the age, and I talked so much, I had a twin sister who didn't talk till she was 4. I did all the talking for us. I was a chatterbox. But that became my label. And it became a label that in my young mind and heart and nervous system was not well received. So I remember being 7, and I wrote about this in my first book. I remember being 7 and getting in my stocking, the 7-year-old excited. What did Santa bring? What juicy, great things am I going to get? And I got a set of chatter teeth.
Oh.
And I remember my shoulders dropping, my heart dropping. It's like, oh, they're making fun of me. And so I learned to shut that down, that part of me down.
Wow.
And there was a situation, for the most of my childhood, my mother was not in capacity to deal with life. And so she received what many women in the 60s and 70s would have received, which was a prescription for Valium, which meant that when I came home enthusiastic, excited to talk about my day, as the chatty little girl that I was, so I'm still only 5, 6, or 7, my mom was passed out on the couch again and again and again. So there was no one to receive me fully. There was no one whose nervous system was in capacity to hold space for me to be who I wanted to be, who I was. And so I quickly started to shut down those parts of me. Yeah. And then I can remember so clearly when I was 11 years old, I had a sibling who attempted suicide. Mm. She was only a little bit older than me. And I found her. My parents were at a wedding. This is pre-cell phone days, right? So we're dating ourselves a bit here. But they happened to call, and I remember the enthusiasm. Oh my gosh, they called. Phew, this isn't on me to manage anymore. I didn't know what to do. I found her, and I didn't know what to do. And so they said, don't worry, we're coming home. And I just remember this relief, they're coming home. And they came home. And they got my sister dressed in her prettiest dress, and they took her back to the wedding. And this was never mentioned. And that was a day that I can remember. Your show is called Masks Off. That's the day I remember the masks became my survival. Right. This is what we do when we're faced with trauma. We put on a mask. This is what I was taught. And it took me decades to realize the how amplified the masks were and how many masks I was wearing. So now fast forward to the age of 32, I have a beautiful daughter. I'm living a life that on the outside looked pretty good, but inside I felt empty. And my daughter's first caregiver, who ended up becoming a friend of mine, her husband called me an ice queen. And I remember it was like literally getting stabbed with an ice pick in my heart. It's like, shoot, that's what I'm projecting into the world. Now, 23 years later, I understand that was my defensive mechanism. That's how I was able to cope with the world, through abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, being rejected, being neglected, heartbreak. The ice queen is my protection mechanism. And so at this moment today, I can say thank you, because that's what allowed me to cope with life. But then I had to make a decision. She had her purpose, but I didn't need to carry her anymore.
Exactly.
So I could put her down. So these conditionings that we receive and the trauma situations that we all go through, big traumas, little traumas, we all have traumas, but the way that it's modeled for us how to deal with it and what's welcomed and what's not welcomed is really what creates the masks that we wear today. And so now I work with people through their traumas, through their conditioning, through their limiting beliefs, and primarily through their nervous system, to help them to unwind and unkink the nervous system where they have held in. And then what they hold in, what comes out into the world, what gets put out or projected, is a masked version of their truth, because at some point their truth wasn't welcomed.
It's conforming.
I'm going to pause there, let you guys respond, and then I want to tell you a story about my son.
All right.
I was just going to, go ahead. You can go ahead, Kim. I was just going to ask a question.
Does this happen a lot?
Yeah.
We're pretty good though. We do bounce off each other pretty well.
exactly.
It's not too often.
I love it.
My question that just came up as you were sharing, how do you help your clients to, as you just said, heal or uncover or release from the body?
Yeah. So a therapist typically goes and dives in to look for the trauma. That's not the method that I take as a coach. And I have had a lot of training in trauma and trauma release, but I'm not a therapist. I'm a coach. I only need to know as much about the past as the present requires me to know. And my first step is to bring my clients into states of relaxation. And this is where my yoga teacher training hat. So I have a teacher training academy, and I'm a mindfulness and a meditation trainer as well. I bring people into states of relaxation because it's when we go into that deep relaxation and start to relax the nervous system. The nervous system is the communication channel between the mind and the body. When we can start to relax the nervous system, we can start to open up to see what's present. So we actually move into states of relaxation, which is, let's call it our joy. And when we go into those states, the tension starts to appear. The tension of, is this safe? How dare you? Who do you think you are? Especially when I'm working with female spiritual entrepreneurs, people that are wanting to be coaches, therapists, that's primarily my client, people who are wanting to bring that lens into the world of authenticity through their business. They're going to be met with that part of them that questions the validity of who they are, the authenticity of who they are. How dare they? And all the shadows come forward. So the shadows are the disowned parts of ourselves that we try to push away because to look at them is too confrontational. So I have them bring their shadows in. Let's make room for this shadow. My ice queen was a shadow. It wasn't about denying her. It's like acknowledging her and saying, wow, there's a part that you played in my life that I say thank you to. You were my gift. So we make our shadows our gifts. So I have lots of different tools and strategies that I use depending on what comes forward. And typically people come to me because they have a longing to feel like themselves and they don't know what that means. Or they have a longing to start a business, but they keep getting met with the saboteur. The saboteur is that part of them that literally is like a gremlin on their shoulder that says, no, 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 maybe somebody else, but not you. This is not for you. What are you thinking? So I help them to navigate through those narratives with a tenderness, a gentleness, an acknowledgement that it's okay, that those aren't bad parts of them that they have to kick away and deny. They just have to recognize how to hold space for those parts of themselves that perhaps they have believed were wrong or been made wrong.
Right.
And you go now. Go ahead. Sorry.
And recognizing too that, I mean, shadow work is, you can't heal without it, is my feeling. It's such an important part. And those shadow parts were denied by our parents, most typically.
Yeah.
And
it's
so,
because they didn't have the capacity to acknowledge their own shadows, right?
Exactly.
So this is where they've closed themselves up because that's all they knew.
Right.
And so we talk about generational patterns and generational trauma. This is how it happens. They do what they do because it's what their parents did, because it's what their parents did. And so all of a sudden we have a generational trauma that happened, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, but it's still passed on because no one has taken the time to say, wait, no, it stops here. Right. It stops here because I don't want to pass this on to my kids or their kids or their kids.
Yeah. So it's not an intentional passing. And so it's important for people to understand that this is not intentional. And now we have the choice with this knowledge to reparent ourselves and integrate and look at those dark spots and bring them into the light and know, like you said, it's not about judgment or shame. It's about recognizing that they served us and they were helpful. So we received the love with the conditions. It still was love. And we were seen when we were in that shell that we had created. And it's such an important thing to talk about so people understand that it wasn't through your own fault, your parents' fault. This isn't about pointing fingers or blame. It's about, in this present moment, how can you heal and how can you step into your light? And that saboteur, it's very strong in all of us, most of us, I should say, and recognizing, oh, wait, that's just my old story and my old pattern of staying hidden That's all it is. It's,
Yeah.
how can I work with you? Yes, I see you. I always think of it. It's like, it's right here. And then you have the other one. It's like, no, I'm going to listen to this one a little more. I am worthy. I can shine. And that's beautiful that you're bringing that in. Kim, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to say a comment before Diana shares the story about her son, and just to go along with an example or how to exemplify the generational pattern. So one is I do, with my clients, I do hypnosis, but at the same time, I also have been working with a person who does hypnosis as well, the same methodology. And I just had a session with her this past week where literally I went back to being in my mother's womb, and in the womb being able to feel all of her anxiety and all of her suffering, and literally energetically took that on while I was in the womb, which then as a trajectory impacted my life from that moment all the way forward. That's a big part of why and how I became the rescuer, because I couldn't tolerate the pain and suffering that I could feel from my mother. And I had to then, how do I make her happy? How do I fix? I became the fixer, rescuer. How do I fix other people's pain and suffering? Because it's so uncomfortable and intolerable for me to take it on. I so energetically absorb it. So she helped me with that to release, from the time that I was in the womb, so that I had to actually go back even further, if you believe in it, which I now do fully believe. I went into a previous life where I was not that. And then I could feel the difference between being a fixer rescuer and when I was free, so that now I can bring more of that energy in. But I just wanted to illustrate that because you talked about the generational patterns and how it can be passed down. And for me, it was literally in the womb through the mother. So, and if you don't do anything with that, with whatever you come in with, you're just going to pass it on to the next generation. And
and because I'm also a yoga teacher trainer, I have a really good understanding of the energy centers in the body. And so we call them chakras. Chakras are the energy centers in the body, and they're associated with the developmental ages. They're associated with different traumas. They're associated with different colors. They're associated with different possibilities in your life. And if we think about the root chakra, which is the base chakra, chakra number 1, it's our sense of safety and survival. And its primary development happens in the womb and up until the age of 1. So if you had a mom who was anxious, you had an unwanted pregnancy, your mom had an unwanted pregnancy or unexpected pregnancy. In my case, my mom had 4 children under the age of 2.5.
Wow.
So when I came along, I was a twin, and I had a 15-month-old sibling and a 29-month-old sibling. That's overwhelm. I just have complete compassion for what my mom must have gone through. So this newborn comes in, whatever the experiences are in the womb get imprinted as safety and survival. And then they come out of the womb. And in my case, as a twin, we were premature. We were little. We had to stay in the hospital. The hospital was 45 minutes away. We were in separate incubators, and my parents could not come to visit because my dad was back at work and my mom was caring for 2 toddlers. So our basic attachment needs in day 2 would have been missing completely. So I go back, and that was my first trauma that I'm aware of. And what do we do with that? And then all of a sudden, fast forward, in my case, 56 almost years, and we're in the middle of a global pandemic. And so we are at the incredible safety and survival assault in our lives right now. Like our nervous system is assaulted and our root chakra is assaulted. Now we have this situation, but it's not just this situation, this pandemic. It's all of the undigested experiences that happened at that level of the chakra right from conception and even before. that gets layered and layered and layered. And that's why different people cope with this differently. Because for some people, it has awakened and assaulted that basic sense of survival. And it's like, I won't make it through this alive. That's literally there. That's what happens. We go to this younger version of ourselves that hasn't digested some of these earlier imprints that we received. And we have, like you said, Tia, we have a responsibility. Once we recognize that, it's our responsibility to repair, to reparent, to be willing. This, when we say we have to do the work, this is the work.
Exactly.
This is what it is. This is what it is. And it's not about blaming, because when you blame a finger at another, there's three more looking at you. It's like, my mother, I cannot change what my mother did.
Right.
And my mother's deceased. And I love my mother. And I know she always did the best she can. And I say, everyone does the best they can, given their model of reality of the world in that moment.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Beautiful.
My mom didn't set up and to say, I'm going to mess these girls up. And we were messed up. But it wasn't her fault. She did the best that she could. And then we also know that hurt people hurt people. And so the people that assaulted me and abused me was because they were not able to be in their own capacity and kindness of their heart. But I do believe that everybody is born with a pure, gentle, golden heart.
I do too.
Totally.
And we've been imprinted with things that have led us to mask, to deny, to shut down, and to react from that place. And our role as we become more mature in our spiritual work and who we are, spiritual work is just really getting to know who you are. It's not religion, it's about consciousness. Then we get to reframe our narratives. We get to do our work of forgiveness, and we get to ultimately create more spacious openness in our heart, return to our authentic states. That's when the masks start coming off.
Right.
And then we can start dancing again, right, Diana? Put on the rock outfit
and singing.
Dancing.
And let's
Oh my
just like
gosh.
slide into Risky Business is
That's
the
right.
name of the
Risky
movie
Business.
with
I was
Tom
thinking
Hanks,
of it. Yeah.
where he
Tom
comes
Cruise.
sliding in. Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
With the air guitar. That's what I was thinking.
I host,
In the
when
underwear.
I run my retreats, when I run retreats or teacher training programs, like dancing is a big part of it. Because that's one of the ways, like we have been taught very masculine practices. When I say masculine, it's the energy of masculine and feminine, not
Right.
male and female. We all carry both. But we have gotten very stuck in our masculine practices in our society of hold the pose in yoga, meditation, and doing. And we've forgotten about the feminine. And there's a whole feminine that's locked in us that needs to be expressed as creativity, as movement, as the Shakti energy. Shiva Shakti is the Sanskrit terms for masculine and feminine. So I put on music and I have people literally bopping all over the place dancing before we get into meditation.
Yes.
So we can access that creative aspect of who we are and come back to our authentic states. And every morning I sit with my coach in a group on a coaching call. And we always start with music. And everybody's kind of doing this, bopping their shoulders a little bit. And I'm like sitting on my physio ball, dancing and moving all over the place, because I know that's how we get energy to move.
Right.
And then once the energy moves, we can go into it and we can say, what do you need? But stuck energy, like that's why meditation isn't the first thing that I encourage my clients to do. It's movement, then meditation.
And we have to connect to our body. I mean, our body is what holds all of this, like you said, in the chakras, in our cells, in our DNA. And when we're disconnected from our body, healing is not integrated. It's not full and complete. And I love how you brought up the creativity aspect, because Kim and I did a 21-day rebalancing your backpack week, basically an internal body, mind, spirit. And one of our exercises is creativity, create something. And so many of us were creative when we were young because we were tapped into that, just like both of you shared. And that gets layered upon layered. And how many adults do we interact with who go, I'm not creative. I'm not creative. Oh, I can't move my body. I'm embarrassed. There's that shame. And so it's another layer to peel back and to start to reconnect.
Well, how difficult was it for us to post our videos of us dancing when we did for the movement? Tia did one where she was dancing, and then I was doing one where I was dancing with my daughter to get the community to encourage them to dance along as well. And we both had trouble taking the mask off to put that video on.
Right. we can do it in the safety of our home, but to actually record and post and share that felt another level of vulnerability. And are people going to judge how I'm dancing and all of that? Where in reality, we all crave that.
And we need it.
We need it more than ever.
And it's our ability to listen, to really intuitively listen to the urges of our body. So sometimes I'll put on music, it's really slow, and I just follow the urges of my body to move in this really slow, tuned in way. And other times I'm putting loud music on and I'm on my deck and it's 11 o'clock at night and I'm like dancing like crazy, because we need both.
Exactly.
And then sometimes I'm in full stillness. That's my meditation time.
And I think that's such an important piece of knowing to connect to what do I need right now?
Yeah.
So not what someone's telling me, what do I need? Do I need to move big? Do I need to move slow? Do I need silence?
Do I need help?
Exactly.
Do I need to let go of my story? Right. Do I need to surrender? Do I need to step up and show up? Do I need to do more? Do I need to do less? My program is called Realign to Thrive. That's my business program. And the Realign and Realign to Thrive takes us through a journey of acknowledging what we need. And it's very intentional that the N at the end of Realign is, what do I need? Because we have been taught when we put on our masks, we start to deny our needs. And I think for women especially, who have been really conditioned at very skillfully managing many different roles and taking care of everybody else's needs, we lose touch of what we need. And as long as we're wearing the mask, we can't touch that part of ourselves. Right. So we start, the Realign journey starts with the R, which is remember that you're a miracle. Statistically, there's a 0% statistical chance that you would be here. Depending on the research, 1 in 40 million, 1 in 40 billion or 400 billion, depends on what research you read. Either way, statistically, it is 0. And yet you're here. And we're all here. And that makes us miracles. So we start with that remembrance so we can soften into our hearts. The E in Realign is exploring the sensations of the body. So sensations are the language of the body. So it's not I feel angry or I feel tired. It's I notice my shoulders are drooping, or my eyelids are heavy, or my belly is churning, or my chest feels tight, or my breath is constricted. So it's defining the language of the sensations of the body. The A is to allow it to be. Just go in and notice, give it language. And the L is to let it be and love it as it is, so that you don't have to change it. So we go into this realignment process to become real, REAL. We don't have to change anything because there's nothing wrong in that moment. And then once we become real, we soften, we relax into our body states. Then we have the IGN in Realign. And the I is what inspired pop-up or intuitive wisdom comes to you. So we welcome the wisdom of the mind. In meditation, people think that they're doing it wrong if their mind gets active. We're human beings. That's what happens.
Exactly.
Just let it be. Just let it be. So what is the inspired pop-up that comes? And usually there's a wisdom that shows up, whether it's around personal growth or personal development or business growth or parenting or relationship or whatever. There's a pop-up that comes up. Oh my gosh, I have a longing to move my body. Or I really want to write that book. Or I really want to be more present to my kids. So what is the intuitive pop-up that comes up when you can rest enough to listen? The G is gratitude and Realign. What are you grateful for in this moment? When we get really calm and quiet, what gratitude is longing to be expressed? And then the N in Realign is, now what do I need? Having acknowledged this, what do I need? And it's a deal breaker for a lot of people. And some of my clients have called me, I've coached thousands of people probably at this point. They call me the love architect, because what happens when they get to that place of need, they fall in love with themselves. And it happens within 1 or 2 sessions.
Wow.
And when they fall in love with themselves, whatever their longing is, whatever brought them to me, we can like full speed ahead, move forward and help them to create that in their life. But I don't start with the to-do list. I start with the self-love. And
that's where it has to start.
It has to start. Otherwise, we're just pushing through with our masks and our conditioning, and it's not going to be real.
Right. It's just another check on the to-do list of what everyone else is expecting us to do, because it's not coming from within.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, that was me too. And sometimes it's still me too, right? Like, I am not a guru. I am somebody who constantly has to do my work to keep myself in check. And until I was 32, I didn't even know there was a different way.
Right.
I just followed the expectations. I went to high school, I went to university, I got my graduate degree, I started working, I made money, I bought the house, I got married, I had the child. And then one day I just realized something's missing. And if that's the day that the work begins, or not, you can continue on the path you're on, or you can start to go into the self-inquiry, which is what I chose to do, thankfully. But every day, and especially when I am refaced with new traumas in my life, and let me just put it out there that COVID is traumatic for a lot of people. And COVID for me was the least of my trauma this past year. There was tons of other trauma for me. And I had to continuously do my realignment program, my protocol, check in with myself. What do I need? What do I truly need? What does my nervous system need? What does my heart need? What does my inner child need right now? So that I don't shut that part of me down and go back to my old patterns. So it's a journey. It's a constant journey. And I say, we are not on a healing journey. We're on a human journey. And part of our human journey is to be willing to do the healing work to keep us human, to keep us whole, because that's our natural state. But we fragment ourselves.
Right. Out of necessity and recognizing that we are human, and it's the constant rechecking and re-noticing. And I love how you end with needs in Realign, which is that full circle back to the child wanting that cookie. And that need wasn't met in that moment. And that started that. So now you're going backwards and reconnecting. Yeah. So it's that circle. I love how that all came together. Kim, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, like, before we start to wind down, I know you wanted to share a story with us about your son. So I just wanted to make sure we circled back to that before we start to wind up.
Yeah, for sure. So there's in the shadow work, there's a shadow teaching that's called the Gene Keys. And there's a book, and they have like 70 some odd shadows in there, and I'm learning about them with two of my coaches. We're exploring them, and I'm getting deeper. So it's beyond the traditional shadows that we know about, which are the saboteur and all the various ranges. The Gene Keys talks about a shadow range being where we settle for mediocrity versus style.
Interesting.
So the mediocrity is like, life's okay. I don't want to shake things up because, I've got my house, I've got my job, I've got my car, I've got my kid, I've got my picket fence. I'm not going to shake things up. That's the mediocrity. I'm content in my relationship. It's not great. My boundaries aren't honored. I don't really get to spend the time in the quality way that I want to, but it's okay because something else might not be out there for me. So I stay in mediocrity. When you step out of mediocrity, you step into style. That's the light of it, the style. And it comes through the knowing of what are your desires. And in the teachings that I do in yoga, people often believe that the ego is the desire center and that our job is to turn away from the ego, to extinguish it, to move outside of our body, that our body is a problem. This is very classical yoga teaching from Patanjali Sutras, that we have this embodiment is a problem. In the teachings that I teach, which are based on the tantric philosophy, our body is a gift. And our ego is a gift because it's our individual expression of who we are. The thing is, we just can't let it run the show. We have to keep it in check. Okay? So not enough of that, we go to mediocrity. Too much of it, the world becomes centered around me, which, by the way, I tell my kids it is anyways, because they are the universe embodied. So the world does center around them, but they just can't come to it from too much of a heady place. So when we step into our style, we start stepping into our authenticity. And I'm not going to get into too much backstory, but March 16th of last year, my husband of 15 years left our home and didn't come back. My cat died a few weeks later. My dad died 2 months later. And my daughter, 23, who was my support system through all of that, moved 3,300 kilometers away because I told her she had to. That was her life journey. And I found myself in a puddle with a shattered heart, a truly shattered heart. And I had two choices that day. I could either get myself busy, get back to helping others, focus on taking care of my son, watch some Netflix, maybe eat or drink, which is not my habit, so it's not likely going to happen. You know, do excess yoga, do all the things that I could have done to take me out of my pain, but instead I chose to stay in the pain. I chose to sit in it. And literally every day I said, pain, what do you need today?
Mm.
And some days it was full on buckets of tears. Some days it was journaling. Some days it was slow movement. Some days it was fast movement. Some days it was no movement. Some days I stayed in bed. And what that allowed me to do was befriend my grief. And this grief was heavy. And it wasn't just grief from this period. Remember, if we don't process undigested experiences from earlier days, they show up. So I know that there was a cumulative grief. I know that I was feeling a collective grief in the world with COVID. And then my own grief and fear around COVID, that it was massive. And I am so proud of myself that I chose that path of staying with it, because what came through, and I believe that grief is not linear, by the way, so it may not be that it's fully done. It comes in waves. But every time I came through it and started to feel a little more spaciousness, a little lighter, a little more great gratitude and joy, I started getting clearer about what I want in my life. And I'm moving now 3,300 kilometers away in a few months to join my daughter across Canada, selling my house, taking my 14-year-old with me, going to where I know nobody else but my daughter, and starting over living in the mountains by the ocean. And I'm excited about that. And so that's me going from the mediocrity where I accepted the relationship that I had. And now I can look back and say thank you to my husband for leaving, because it was our human journey needed to come to an end. And we're both spiritual teachers. And I wasn't living in my highest spiritual self in that relationship. And now I'm stepping into my style. So the story about my son, we were at the airport last year going to Iceland 3 days before the global pandemic hit. And he's walking through the airport, and he's just bought himself some Ray-Ban sunglasses that he paid for himself. And he's walking through the airport wearing his Ray-Ban sunglasses at the age of 13, thinking he's like cool dude, right? And I said to him, Ben, take your sunglasses off. That looks ridiculous. You're in the airport. And then I learned about this shadow of mediocrity versus style. And I said to him the other day, buddy, the next time you're in the airport, I want you to wear your sunglasses, and I want you to rock those sunglasses. You be you. And I'm so sorry I said that. That was denying you your authenticity. So remember, we can't change the past with our kids, but we can always repair. Exactly. Here we go. That's my repair. That's my parenting moment of being able to step up and say, you know what, buddy, you don't have to be anybody but you.
That's great.
Yes.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah. And it doesn't, you can repair at any time.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have to be right away. Once you learn and grow and evolve, then you can come back and repair. What a beautiful, I love that.
Yeah.
I imagine his Ray-Bans are your air guitar.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yes. And now I do play the air guitar again. I do
yes,
that.
maybe you should borrow the Ray-Bans while you're playing the next time. Really rock.
Oh, I love it. Love it.
So, Tia, do you want to, first of all, any closing thoughts before Tia's going to ask you a few questions, but if there was more you wanted to say or add, I mean, you did a beautiful job. I could just listen to you all day long, literally. Thank you so much.
And I can speak all day long too.
That's okay.
You're using your voice.
I have years of making up for it. I think the most important thing is, remember, everybody, this is such an important teaching for me. Everybody's doing the best they can given their model of the reality of the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That hurt people. And you get to decide as an adult if you want to be that hurting person. Right? So that responsibility. Be gentle with yourself. Human journey can be really tough sometimes, and it needs compassion. Your inner child needs compassion. Your adult self needs compassion. The people who have betrayed you or hurt you or abandoned or neglected you because they didn't know, they need compassion as well. And I really feel that if we are committed to doing this work and taking off our masks off, then we get to transform the world. We can do it, but it takes a commitment and it's work.
Absolutely.
And I'm here to do the work with you guys. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you for being here.
Beautiful, beautiful way to wrap that up. So we like to end with 5 closing questions. So whatever comes to your mind, right? Just tap in. So what is the most prominent mask you wear that still shows up from time to time?
I'm going to say it's in the last year I've been wearing a victim mask. Like, poor me. And I catch myself putting that mask on. And then I have to make myself take that mask off. But it is one that really quickly came back in this last year.
Yeah. If you could go anywhere in the world, assuming COVID is not a part of our world at this moment, or whenever the world reopens for travel, where would you go?
I want to go to Hawaii. And when I'm in BC right now, it's like a super cheap and quick flight. So I am going to be there. I'm actually committing to being there for Christmas, fingers crossed, next year.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I love your intention for that. What's your favorite way to take care of yourself?
I love being outside and going for walks. I tell people this with a little bit of embarrassment, but I spend the first 3 hours of every morning on self-care. And that's been a journey of teaching myself that I deserve it. And I not only deserve it, I require it. So I get up in the morning, I meditate, usually for the first 15, 20, 30 minutes. And then I go for a walk for about 45 minutes. And then I come back and I get my juices ready for the day, because I'm one of these health nuts where I have like my bulletproof coffee, my celery juice, and then my green smoothie. It's all lined on the counter. And then I'll do something. I'll get on a call with my coaching team, with my coach and the people in the coaching group, which is all about filling ourselves up for the day. And then I start. And every one of those pieces has been essential for me to move through this last year. And I'm so grateful and unapologetic that I take that time for me. And anybody who says they don't have time for themselves, count the number of hours that you're doing stuff that you could get rid of. Like, I do not scroll social media ever. I post on it, but I don't scroll it ever. I watch very little TV and shows. If I do, it's like end of the day, an hour. My son and I these days are watching Love It Enlisted Vancouver on HGTV. And I have a whole story around a HGTV home renovation that I received. And it's in my next book coming out, Ignite Possibilities is the name of it, getting launched in May, I believe. So you can read about that story in that book. It's an unbelievable story that came from a bankruptcy to living in a decrepit, old, rundown, mouse-infested, mold-infested cottage, to getting an HGTV $50,000 home renovation. It's a beautiful story. And so we are binging HGTV like one a day. We watch one a day. But yeah, like, take time for yourself and do what makes you feel alive. For me, being outside every single day of the year, it doesn't matter if it's raining or snowing or blizzard, I'm out every single day of the year in nature and breathing.
Love it. If you have a bucket list, what's at the top of the list?
I would love to be sitting next to Oprah talking about my new New York Times bestseller book in a year.
Future gratitude. I love it.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And our last question is, what is one book that changed your life?
Truly, The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz. And it's now a required reading before anybody comes into my yoga teacher training program. It's their first book. And the reason it really impacted me, there's a lot of books that have impacted me significantly, but I read that one in 2004, December 31st. I had separated from my first husband for, at that point, about 11 or 12 months, 10 months, I believe. And I had started dating someone who lived in Chicago because it was safe. He lived that far. And I was on my way to see him on New Year's Eve, knowing that, you know what, I was just using this as an excuse to not be alone. And I got stranded at the airport for 10 hours because of a snowstorm. And the only book I had was The Mastery of Love So I read it over and over and over. And I believe I read it 6 times in 10 hours. It's a fairly fast read. And every time I read it, I read something different. And it talks about Don Miguel uses the word domestication, which we know is conditioning, and personal responsibility, and how other people can't be responsible for your joy.
Yes.
And I just love that book. And to this day, I still credit that book as having really changed the course of my life.
Thank you for sharing.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And so once again, this has been absolutely amazing. It's been such a gift for me, honestly, to have you on here. I'm soaking it all up. So we really appreciate you coming on. Can you just let listeners know if they want to get in touch with you, how can they find you?
And if you have anything you'd like to offer them as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. So my website is dianalockett.com. We can put it in the show notes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's a link there. If you go to my coaching tab, you can book an appointment with me. If you go to my yoga tab, you can find out about my yoga teacher training. And I have a Facebook group called Realign to Thrive with the trademark symbol. And that's where I do coaching. I post a lot of coaching content and a lot of thought leadership content. And at the very top of that page is a link where if you just put in your email address, I'll send you a free PDF on how to manage stress and to work through mental well-being at this time. So it's my gift to people so that they can feel better and just really take care of themselves.
So
Beautiful.
needed. Thank you for offering
Thank you.
for everyone. I'm sure it will be most helpful moving through these next several months, however long, and beyond, because we always need that. It doesn't matter if we're in the middle of a pandemic or not. There's always stressors. Yeah. So
can I finish with 3 quick things that happened recently? My
Sure,
son said
of
to me,
course.
my son woke me up at 1:30 in the morning. I just feel I get these downloads. It's like I meant to share this. He woke me up at 1:30 in the morning, one morning, like 2 weeks ago. He said, "Mom, when is life going to go back to normal?" Now, remember, this is not even just COVID. This is his dad having left our family, his sister having left. He lost his cat. He lost his grandpa.
Right.
We're moving across the country. He's losing his friends, his school, everything. And my only response with a little bit of panic was, buddy, it's never going to go back to that normal, to that normal. We get to create a new normal.
Yes.
So as we manage and navigate and make our way through this pandemic, let's let go of the attachment to what was and stay open to the possibility and the transformation of what's possible. The other thing he said to me, 2 other questions. These ones were easy for me to answer. The first one was tough, and it actually kept me up for a few hours until the next day where I could find my words and talk about this being a transformational opportunity, right? That we get to create the change, and change is okay. Second question he said was, what is the meaning of life?
Wow.
I'm opening up another podcast opportunity here, by the way, with you guys. What is the meaning of life? Well, the thing is, I could answer that really easily. The meaning of life is whatever you make of it. That's easy. That's what I teach. That's what I know. That's what I truly believe in my core. And his third question is, why are we here? The big why. Again, super easy. We're here to love. And so if you're not feeling that you are coming from a place of love, do the work. Find a coach, find a therapist, find a friend. Try to get into some practices. Commit to your practices. Committing to your practices is committing to yourself. And it's committing to your life purpose, which we're here to love. And there's a whole way that that's expressed through the work that you do. But truly, if we bring it down to the core, our dharma, our purpose in life is to love. And so I really love that you guys brought me on here. And I'm so grateful. Thank you so much.
Such a beautiful way of ending. Yes.
Definitely.
So we will have all of that information in the show notes on how people can find you. And again, we appreciate everyone for listening today. And this has been such a treat for me.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on, and looking forward to your book coming out as well.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes. Have a great day, everybody. On that note.
Bye.
Bye.